Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Chung, and today I'll be repeating Carly Diaz's speech on anti-vaxxers. So her proposition is that anti-vaxxers are not influencing parents' decisions to get their kids vaccinated. So she believes that the anti-vaccine community fails to impact the public's decisions to vaccinate their children. So she provides two secondary claims. One being that children's immune systems are still developing and they are at an age where they are more susceptible to diseases and viruses. Her second secondary claim is that vaccines have and are continuing to evolve. I argue that both of these claims do not have anything to do with the proposition. They fail to address the anti-vaxxers and how they influence parents and the public. So my counterclaim to her proposition is that her claim has no is that anti-vaxxers can spread false information and convince parents to avoid vaccinations. So, to address her first secondary claim, children's immune systems are still developing. They're at an age where they're more susceptible to viruses and diseases. She never provided any factual evidence whatsoever, nor does this have anything to do with her argument. She never discussed anti-vaxxers and doesn't cite any sources, so there's no evidence to refute for this. I have found that more and more people have been refusing vaccinations. According to a medical journalist for MedPageToday.org, pediatricians reported to an increasing number of dismissals for vaccine refusal. So in 2013, 11.7% of people refused their vaccinations compared to 6.1% in 2006. And so the most common reasons for dismissal were a lack of trust between physician and patient, as well as concern for autism. That is double the number of the anti-vaxxers 10 years ago. So even if the percentage of anti-vaxxers are minimal, they do have an impact amongst our current population. And so, to address her second claim, vaccines have and are continuing to evolve. She once again doesn't talk about, she doesn't provide any cited sources, nor does she talk about her proposition at all. She mainly talks about the history and the technological advances of vaccines. So, because it doesn't connect to her proposition, I cannot refute her evidence. However, I will say that according to the infectious disease advisor writer, they talk about how social media has given anti-vaxxers a platform to spread their word. The writer stated, however, through the combination of homophily, a theory that asserts individuals tend to form connections with others who are similar to them in characteristics such as socioeconomic status, values, beliefs, or attitudes. And the convenience of social media, individuals who have anti-vaccine beliefs can consume information that adheres to their system of beliefs and ignore dissenting information. So this makes it more difficult to spread accurate information amongst social media platforms. If someone were to only follow platforms that advocate their own beliefs, then chances are small that they'll have any other exposure to accurate information. And although we do not see many anti-vaccination movements here in Southern California, there are people out there who truly support it. Carly's proposition is that anti-vaxxers are not influencing parents' decisions to get their kids vaccinated. She did not provide adequate arguments for her claim, providing information that was very irrelevant towards her case. Her two secondary claims are that children's immune systems are still developing and that vaccines have and are continuing to evolve. I would have to argue that anti-vaxxers are able to spread their information and convince their parents to avoid vaccinations through social media and it's shown that it's working. Thank you.
Well, you kind of had an awkward claim because there's an argument that says that there's not really an argument here. There's also an argument that says whatever argument there is unclear. And the argument seems to be focused on whether or not anti-vaxxers are having an effect, and none of the supporting points talk about whether or not they are having an impact. It just talks about whether or not vaccines work and whether or not we're developing new techniques for them. So I think you've got multiple challenges here to deal with, and you did a pretty good job trying to keep them organized and explain your position. I do think that there should be an additional argument, and that is that it's unclear what the advocate wants you to believe, because there's sometimes inconsistency between the positions that they are taking. On the one hand, they suggest that in their proposition that the anti-vaxxers are not having any particular effect, and on the other hand, there's information that suggests that they are having an effect and that they're sharing this information. You do an argument basically suggesting that they are having an effect, which is a counterclaim to the advocate's point. I'm not sure how. It's always a good idea to make a counterclaim to the point, especially if the point doesn't make a very clear inference to begin with. But I do think that you suggest that anti-vaxxers are having an impact on people in the world, that there seems to be some influence primarily because of social media, and to deny this is to ignore the reality. And I think that that's really what the advocate's proposition, at least as it's phrased, sounds like it's about. I think you had good presses on the notion that there aren't any citations on the advocate's part concerning that second point, and that there aren't any examples that they can use to illustrate the particular purpose. And then when you follow up with the social media stuff, I'm going, okay, well, if the argument is about whether or not they can have an impact, you demonstrate that they can have an impact. How big an impact they're having, well, you're the only one who provides any measurement. So if we're just disputing the main proposition, I think you've got the right argument here. Like I said, I think it's a little bit confusing if that is in fact the main argument. All right, thank you.